You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. Dr. Seuss. Welcome to Casa de Confidence, a podcast for you. You'll hear some incredible women
and some awesome, cool dudes
going confidently in the direction of their dreams and living in the purpose of their heart.
You're our host,
Julie DeLucca-Collins, and you are our sidekick. Hashtag handsome hot husband.
That again.
And the producer of the show.
That I am.
I am an author, speaker, coach, dreamer, and most of all,
we help people go in the direction of their dreams
and support them on their purpose. So pull up a chair,
grab a drink,
and make yourself at home because our casa
is your casa. Welcome back to Casa de Confidence. This is Dan, and I have Julie with me, and our guest today is Kathleen Israel, someone that Julie has something in common with, as they've both been pilgrims on the Camino de Santiago. Hey, Julie.
Hello, Daniel Collins.
How you doing?
I am doing great.
You are? Mm-hmm. You look great, too.
Oh, well, thank you. I have no makeup on.
Yeah, but you don't need it because you are gorgeous.
Buttering me up, I see.
I am buttering you up.
What would you like from me today, Daniel?
I would like to talk about our guest a little bit. And you know what? Anything else you want to talk about this morning? You can go nuts.
Well, listen, I have to say this is a conversation with our guest that I hope inspires the individuals listening. She is someone that was a caretaker for her husband. He had Parkinson's. And as a caretaker myself, I know that there's a lot of times in which the road is hard. And not only does she know that, but she went on a pilgrimage to Spain to walk the Camino de Santiago. And we unpack a lot of that in the episode. But I have a question for you, Daniel Collins.
For me?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. Go ahead.
So this is a question. I've been reading the book, What If You Are the Answer by Rachel Hollis. And I know a lot of people have a problem with Rachel. And I was a little hesitant to go back to reading Rachel Hollis. But I have to say, this is probably one of the books that she has written that has definitely, or maybe it's because of where I am in my life today, has definitely moved me. I woke up yesterday. It was 4 a.m. I couldn't go back to bed. So yesterday was Saturday. I went ahead and came downstairs and was reading. And a lot of the questions in this book moved me. But one in particular definitely kind of like my brain sort of like went like, what? And I started to put my brain to it. And I want to get your perspective on it. Mm-hmm. So the question is, and I guess for you, my listener.
Well, I'm going to answer.
What?
I am the answer.
No, you're not the answer. My question for you, Daniel, and for the listeners is.
All right. Put me on the spot.
What would you do if you know you could not fail?
What would I do if I knew? I know what I want to say right now. What would I do if I knew? I mean, really, I know this sounds like a cop-out, but I would do what I could to better mankind, to make us love one another and treat each other with respect, and to make sure that, the hungry were fed, and make sure that the, people who didn't have the necessities in life would have that and be truly happy. So, I mean, that's.
Yeah. So now let me ask you, and by the way, that question is attributed often to Eleanor Roosevelt, but it's also, by the way, attributed to a dude. And
cool dude.
Hold on. His name is Robert Schuller. And I would be inclined to say that Roosevelt said it. And because she's a woman and because it's old, somebody else got it. And I know that there's no original thoughts, but I'm just putting that out there. Now, I'm going to take this question and I'm going to ask you, and this is also for the listeners, because this is the question that I've been asking myself since reading that and really kind of unpacking it. And this is what the chapter was all about.
Do you ask yourself in your head, or do you like speak out into the room?
It depends on my mood. I may be journaling it. I may say it out loud.
How about when you're in public? Like you be in Starbucks. Do you ever ask yourself a question out loud?
Yeah, sometimes. It's a sign of a genius.
Sign of a crazy genius.
Okay, here's the question.
Okay, go ahead.
What would you do, Daniel, if you know you're going to fail?
Ooh. Okay, this is something that I deal with at work. Because I know if we're testing something at work, we know it's going to fail. Okay. You still do the test because that's data. And the data you get from that failure is how you go on to figure out how to not fail later. So basically, it boils down to is your successes are built on your failures. So
100%.
Yeah, you still, that's a failure is not something that is something you throw away. You don't throw away failure. You use that failure and use the data you use. I know I'm speaking like an engineer a little bit here, but you use that data to then go on and create your success. So yeah, that's the way I think of that.
So you're creating success, but how would you define success?
That's a big question. How do you define success? Success is making something better, getting a result that you're looking for, or getting a result that you didn't know you needed. We would have never had penicillin if someone didn't mistakenly find that as a result from an experiment in which they weren't looking for it. So success comes in many, many forms.
Yeah. And I think that the definition is very personal, but my thought is, and this is something that I did for many, many years in my life, and is definitely something that I have revised my thinking on. Success, most people believe it's when you arrive. And I thought that, when I have the thing, when I do that, when I get that, when this happens, I'm always looking for the next win. But success is about the journey. It's about the reality that you live daily when you are living life. And you can choose to be successful at where you're at by just focusing on the moment. And I was thinking about the Camino de Santiago. And again, you've been in the Camino as well with me. The one thing that, yes, there is a main purpose. Everybody wants to get to Santiago de Compostela. And if you haven't heard or don't know what this is, I will link some of the other episodes in which I talk about the Camino de Santiago with the Camino Guide, or other episodes too. But the thing that really, hit me when we're in the Camino, although we have that destination, the success and the journey becomes even more important than arriving in Santiago. It's the daily actions, is the daily excitement, is the moment in which we know that there is a great day ahead of us, and we have the choice to put one foot in front of the other. We will also have the choice, right, to take a break, or to talk to people, or to allow the difficultness of the road to get to us. But at the end, it's something that if we wake up in the morning and we're excited about what is ahead of us, it can actually create a better experience. Even if, right, you may be at a challenging moment in time.
Right. I just feel, going back to the Camino and walking, and you're talking about successes. I mean, little things like there's some days when you're walking where you're just beat. and you're tired
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, I got to make it 15 more miles and you're having a hard time. So you set up, you don't want to think about that 15 miles. You want to think of that point on the horizon. Okay, let's get there.
Yeah.
And you get there. You get to that curve up ahead. You get there. That's a success. That's a success. This goes back to tiny habits. And the thing is, when you get there, you got to celebrate it. And that gives you motivation to go on to the next success or the next challenge, which then becomes your success, and celebrate that. It's like getting the power pellets on Pac-Man. Here, I'm dating myself. If you can get to it, you can eat the ghost.
Yeah.
You know, it can power you on. But the other thing too is doing things along that way that allows you to enjoy. Like, hey, Julie, I'm feeling tired. I see a bunch of people up there. I think that's a good spot for us to take a break. In taking that break and caring for yourself, that's a success.
Yeah.
Because you're setting yourself up to then have the energy to go on. So, and you can sit there and enjoy people, meet new people, look around you and see the nature. And, you know, I remember the poppy fields that we saw. I remember the fields of grapes that we saw and the mountains that we saw, the castles in the distance.
Yeah.
That to me is true success because we saw that stuff and we're able to enjoy that stuff. I got goosebumps right now. Sorry.
It's interesting in my brain how, you know, we could be talking about one thing and then you make the response a rich response, and yet your response is always so different from mine. And, you know, and I'm thinking as I've been kind of mulling this over, that for many years in my life, right, fear has been a barrier, and it often has held me back from the actual failure. So I'm not learning the lessons that I've needed to move on in life. And, you know, for instance, I'll give you an example. And I've been doing some deep diving into dopamine and into the book Doze, actually, which is, it's talking about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And the one thing that I realize is and I say this on the episode where I talk about this, my late mother-in-law used to say, the more sleep you get, the more sleep you want. And I always used to roll my eyes at that. And as I'm reading this book about dopamine, I know that in the mornings when or any time during the day for that matter, any time that I hit a wall, most of our response, at least for me, is to, okay, I need a break. I need to give myself, I'm going to have that big thing ahead of me. So I better just take the load off. And that happens right on the road. And I did that a lot in the Camino de Santiago. But a lot of times when I stopped in the Camino, right, because there was a big mountain coming up, it became harder to go. And the same thing happens everyday life. In the morning when I tell myself, oh, I need 5 more minutes, it's going to be a long day. It's harder for me to get up. Or in the afternoon, if I'm about to go into something that is challenging, something that it's like, okay, and maybe I've already had a bunch of things that I've done throughout the day, rather than letting the fear of moving forward be the one that guides me, because my brain is always going to say, hey, take a break, stop this, danger, let me keep you safe. Whereas if you move forward, if you keep going, you're building on the momentum. And then that's when your body and your brain creates the endorphins or the dopamine that then helps you. And the harder the work you do, the more dopamines your brain produces. So when we are seeing something hard, or when we're prone to want to give ourselves a break, it's time to go in. And I'm not saying, hey, don't take a break. I'm not saying, don't self-care and all of that. But many times, if you're anything like me, you've probably taken a step back and said, I don't know if I could do this. I'm going to need to brace myself for it. All right. And then what I'm doing is actually making it harder for myself. I think of the time that we were in the Camino and you went ahead after we went to the wine fountain, and you went to the town where we were staying, and I was having a real hard time because it was uphill the whole way, and I hate uphill. And the one thing that I kept doing was stopping. And I remember I saw a sign next to these ruins, and it said 1 kilometer. Now, come on, people, that's less than a mile. And for me, I stopped. And I remember sitting next to those ruins and thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't know if I can do this. I'm exhausted. My feet hurt. My back hurt. And I remember looking back and then seeing the winding road from where I came from. And I realized that I had walked a long way already. And then I looked ahead of me and I saw the big castle in the distance on the top of the hill. And it was very difficult to get up. It was very difficult to put my pack back on. And it was very difficult to take the first few steps because I had lost the momentum. And when I saw you in the distance, it was such a, sight for sore eyes. And
I checked into our albergue. I took a shower. Then I got changed my clothes.
And he looked so handsome and clean.
Then I got worried.
Then he got worried. Yeah.
So I started walking back.
But he got to the edge. He got to the edge of the town where, the entrance of the town at the top of the hill. And it must have been like 1,000 feet maybe between from where I was to you. And Dean is shaking his head. He's saying it's probably
I walked at least a half a mile.
Okay, well,
out of town.
He came and I saw him on the hill and I started crying because he looked so delightful. And I thought, oh my God, and I've said this before in the podcast, right? He's such a good man. He came back to find me. I would never do that for him, especially if I already was gotten showered, changed. I would be sitting having a glass of wine. But when he came down to where I was, and this is what I love about having Dan as a partner, because he's ready to sweep in and he's like, here, give me your pack. But
she wouldn't let me.
I wouldn't let him. And I was crying and I was tired and it hurt everywhere. And I wouldn't let him because in my brain, I wanted to prove to myself that I was strong enough despite the difficulty of the road that I had been on. And that I was able to keep going and that I was going to, yes, reach a destination, but it's not the end of the destination. It was just the destination for the time being. And I hope that as you're going through life, my friend, that if you're listening to us today, maybe you are in a different period of life. Maybe you're in a period that you have a lot of doubts. And I want you to know that there are going to be rest stops along the way. And that is wonderful, refreshing. But after you rest, remember to look forward to the journey and your continued push forward. And yes, will it be hard? Of course. And will you fail? Most likely. But don't let that failure, right, keep you from moving ahead. Because many of the greatest success stories come from people who refuse to let fear stop them. And that's why my word for the year is fearless. And I have to say, throughout the week, Dan, there were several different things here and there that I found that I was about to put them off. And I said, Julie, your word for the year is fearless. Take the first step. And once I did the first thing, whatever that might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got going. And then at the end of it, and this is the beauty of what dopamine does for us. When you accomplish it, when you're in the throes, in the middle of it, as you're doing it, the harder it gets, the more that you're getting satisfaction that you're doing it. And the more that you're doing it, the more motivated you are to do it. And that's what keeps us going. So, there's going to be a lot of things that I hope this kind of gives you some thoughts for your brain, but live without regret. Encourage yourself to dream big. Take bold action. Clarify what you really truly desire as well, because sometimes we go down the path that is somebody else's script for our lives. So I know I've said a lot, and there's more to come with our guest, but all of these themes are really the themes that I think about when I think of the Camino de Santiago and how that has taught me that is just a parallel for life. In whatever season you are, there is a reason for the lessons that you will learn that will encourage you to, again, move forward, unleash your potential, and break the barriers that have kept you maybe stuck.
Cool. So I hope that you all enjoy and learn something and take something away that enriches your life or the people around you with this interview with Julie and Kathleen.
Welcome back to this new episode of Casa de Confidence. My friend, this is one of my favorite times. And that time is when I speak to fellow pilgrims of the Camino de Santiago. As you know, I did the pilgrimage. I've done it a couple times. I am going to be returning to complete my pilgrimage. But if you've never heard me talk about this, welcome to this conversation. And I know that you're going to be incredibly inspired by today's guest, Kathleen Israel. Kathleen is a book author, and more importantly, she walked the Camino de Santiago, which we're going to dive into what it is, where it is, why did she do it. But also, I want you to know that she lived her entire life in San Diego, California. She raised 5 kids and was married to her husband of 48 years, Ron. They were a team couple for worldwide marriage encounter. And she graduated with a bachelor's degree in art from San Diego State University and studied expressive arts therapy in European Graduate School in Switzerland. She cared for her husband for 17 years while he suffered Parkinson's disease until he died in 2018. During this time, she studied spiritual healing and many enlightened thought leaders and teachers. This book, which is here, is amazing. Wisdom in the Camino is her first book. I know that she will have others, but welcome to the show, Kathleen.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I am excited. When I met you, I knew immediately that you were a kindred soul. You decided to walk the Camino de Santiago, and for many individuals, maybe they've never heard of it. And I was one of them 10 years ago, I suppose. I'd never heard of what it was. And how did this come about? So tell us a little bit about what the Camino de Santiago is.
Well, St. James, the apostle of Jesus, he went to the Iberian Peninsula to tell people about Jesus. And he wasn't very successful. So he went back to Jerusalem where they martyred him. And they brought his body back to Spain, to the furthest place where he got to, and buried him there.
And go ahead. The pilgrimage began because,
well, they were trying to get the Moors out of Spain, and St. James appeared and helped them get the Moors out of Spain. And after that, everybody liked St. James, and they found his grave. And so they started having pilgrimages to his grave in Santiago. Well, Santiago means St. James. And
And
so that's how it started back in the 1200s. Well, sometime between the 1000s and the 1200s. I don't know. And so in the 70s, this monk wanted to resurrect the Camino Santiago, and they found that most of it was on the Roman roads, and most of them were available. Every once in a while, you would have to go on a freeway for a little bit, but
Mhm.
mostly, so that's what it is. And so people started walking the Camino. Some people walk for a spiritual journey, and some people are just like such buff people. They just want to do something like that. And so um, I wanted to walk it because while I was taking care of my husband, well, I mean, before he got sick, I thought we were going to, he was an athlete. I thought we were going to be riding our bicycles across France in our old age, you know.
Mm.
And when he got Parkinson's disease, that dream sort of fell through. And so
Mm.
my friend Judy, while I was taking care of Ron, around 2013, walked the Camino. And she shared it on Facebook. And even though she got blisters and was walking with bloody feet, I realized she was doing something very special for herself. And so
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to. And at that time, I thought, okay, well, this is my new dream. And when Ron's
Yeah.
done with his disease, I would walk the Camino. So
Mm.
that's how that happened.
Well, amazing that you heard from somebody else in 2013. This is one of the phenomenons of the Camino de Santiago. They say, right, that when you hear about the Camino, a lot of times the road calls you and you become
Mm.
so immersed in the thoughts of going in this pilgrimage that you continue to um, pursue going in this pilgrimage. And it wasn't until much later, after you hearing from your friend that she had been on the road and on the Camino, that you took the pilgrimage yourself. How many years after she told you about the trip that you get to go?
6 years. So
Wow.
Ron died in 2018. And, I was doing all the paperwork because after people die, you have a lot of paperwork to do.
Mhm.
And around January 2019, I thought, well, I was done with the paperwork and I was ready to figure out how to do it. And so I read books and I went to the library, had a seminar about how to pack light for the Camino.
Mhm.
So funny. I went to that seminar and the lady who was giving it said, okay, well, who here is planning on going on the Camino? And I was the only one that raised my hand and the room was full. So
Wow.
I guess everybody else just wanted to know how to pack light. so,
Well, I
so,
love
and,
I love that.
and I was so fortunate that she gave me so many good tips about what to do on the Camino. She was like, a mother to me. She was like
Mhm.
telling me all kinds of stuff, and
Yeah.
uh, she
I,
had
I
the,
I
the
love that.
this the science of packing light down. I mean, she was even cutting her tags out of her shirts and stuff to lighten the load.
Really? Well, that's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a lot. I don't think I went that far. I certainly, read a lot of books. I watched a lot of videos, but certainly for me, one of the things that it really made sense to pack as light as possible because
Mhm.
it is not a faint for the faint of heart. The Camino Frances, which is the most popular route, is about 500 miles or 749 kilometers.
Mhm.
But typically, one of the things that I've read is that there's over 148 million pilgrims that have made the pilgrimage overall. And that
Mhm.
number keeps going year after year. Obviously, there was a dip during COVID, but there are
Right.
so many individuals that continue to go through the Camino de Santiago. And it really is one of the most, in a year, in 2021, actually, the number that took the French route was over 87,000 people that walked the Camino. And I know that that number has definitely increased since
Wow.
then. Can you imagine how many people are on that road?
I know, and there's so many now that didn't go during COVID, and
Mhm.
they're like doing it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I know that I was going to go in 2020, but of course, COVID hit, and then I kind of got not sidetracked, but refocused. I guess would be the right way of calling it. My business launched, and again, it's something that I've been spending a lot of time. I was going to go back to the Camino last year, but I did not get a chance to do so because my mom had a fall and I could not
oh,
travel out of the country. But it certainly is one of the most special experiences. Tell me a little bit about this special spiritual journey for you, because everybody has different reasons for walking the Camino. It can be a spiritual journey for many of us. But what about for you? What was that spiritual journey like? And how did it inspire to continue to go through your life? And I know that, in your book, you talk about sharing forgiveness and possibilities.
right. So yeah, when I went on the Camino the first time, I I just okay, so after Ron died, my husband Ron died, I went to a spiritualist church
Mhm.
and they actually talked to the dead. I was just like that, like when I have somebody who dies, I go to the spiritualist church.
Okay.
Anyway, the lady gave me a reading
Mhm.
and she said that I was going to go on a journey,
Mm.
and the journey was deeper than I know, deeper, like in my blood, deeper down into the dirt. And anyway, so afterwards, I told her I was going to go on the Camino, and she said, "Okay, well, now I know what I was talking about." So it really was deeper than I know.
Yeah.
Really, I have no idea. But anyway, that was very special for me
Mhm.
to hear her say that. That was right after Ron died in 2018. And so I was just doing what I was doing and just figuring out how to go and I am Catholic, so I am quite spiritual. Like I heard that some people are spiritual and some of them people are religious, and I
Oh.
am both.
Mhm.
And so it was a spiritual journey for me. I love my faith, and so just meeting people along the way, and what you say to each other is, "Why did you come?"
Yeah.
And then you get to find out why they came. You get to tell them why you came, and all of a sudden you're like sisters and brothers, you
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely. I know that the people that I've met in the Camino certainly are people that I still have connected with since, and we talk about. You do create a special bond. But one of the interesting things that really was something that I wanted to share with the listeners is you. If you don't mind me asking, because you were married for
Mhm.
48 years. I know you didn't get married at 10 years old, but you tend to fall into a demographic of individuals that may be apprehensive of going abroad, may be apprehensive of traveling by themselves. And you did that. What gave you the confidence to be able to do that?
Well, I have traveled with my husband several times, but I have traveled a lot by myself.
Mhm.
I went to school in Switzerland by myself. I had to figure out how to get there. and and yeah, I went to Europe. I've been to Europe several times by myself, I guess I should say. I went to a Holy Week retreat in Ireland one time, and
Mm.
I went to a seminar in Germany, when I was going to Switzerland, I had to fly into somewhere. So the first time I flew into Milan, and the other one I went to Zurich. And then you just, get on a bus, get on a train, and get up to Switzerland. So I have when I was 18, I traveled to Hawaii by myself. I was a counselor at a Girl Scout camp in the mountains over there.
Yeah.
So and I have traveled with my kids without my husband too, because he traveled the world for his job, and I took my kids on a I drove across the US all the way
Wow.
to Nantucket from San Diego.
Oh my God, that's a long drive.
I know. So my husband actually was in the Philippines. Mount Pinatubo blew up on his birthday
Wow.
while he was in the Philippines, and he just, he didn't come home for several months, and finally I got tired of it, and I finished school, and I'm like, I'm going on a vacation. So I took my kids to Nantucket.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. Independent woman, a lady after my own heart. Now, Kathleen, tell me a little bit about the experience. You arrived at the beginning of what most people use as the beginning of their route, and that's where I started my Camino as well, as that Saint Jean Pied de Port. I was reading in your book, and I remember the story that you actually, when you arrived in Biarritz, it was later at night, and you were dropped off by the
Oh
cab.
my
Tell me that
God.
story so the listeners can hear a little bit of how your Camino started.
Oh gosh, so yeah, the cab driver dropped me off I gave him the address,
Mhm.
and and then he dropped me off, and it was like dark. There were no street lights,
Yeah.
and I had to walk down this street with no street lights, and I was trying to contact the lady who who had the
The bed and breakfast.
bed and breakfast, and she never answered my calls, and there I was. And so finally I texted her, and that's what she was waiting for, my text.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it would have been nice if she had told me. She was like really mad at me for being so late, and I'm like,
Oh
without
gosh.
calling her, and I'm like, well, I did call you.
Mhm.
But anyway, I was just like looking down the street and looking at the cab driver and thinking, oh my God, I don't do
Oh
this
my
kind of
gosh.
stuff. So I just thought, well, okay. I just got out of the cab, grabbed my pack, and walked down the street, and I texted her and I said, I don't see your address. There's no address. And so she actually texted me back and said, it's the white door. It's the white door. And yeah,
Hmm.
there is no address. And so
Okay.
she wanted me to walk up to the white door and open it and go into the courtyard and then go up the elevator to her place. And I'm like, geez, I hope this isn't somebody's house.
Right,
I
right. Oh my
opening up the
gosh.
door. And so I did that, and I took the elevator up, and she said it's the first door on the right. And so, I'm just like, oh man.
Oh
And
my goodness.
so I got there and I knocked on the door, and she was there. And
Mhm.
she said I was very lucky she didn't give up on me, because I
Oh
had
boy.
contact her, but I had contact her. She didn't answer her phone.
Wow.
Anyway, so she showed me into my room, which was very nice. It had a big duvet and an iron bed, and like on the shelf they had cocoa and stuff like that. She showed me where the bathroom was. It was very modern. It was like an ancient house, and they had retrofitted it to be very modern. It was lovely.
Ooh, that's a
So
good way to start your trip.
yeah, it was very nice. And I was just like, you know what? My mother always required us to just do what she said.
Mhm.
And I was really used to doing things I just didn't know what to do. And I and I just had to do it. I was the oldest girl of 6 kids, and so
Yeah,
I guess that's part of my self-reliance is
that's good. I
you
love
got to
that.
do it.
Yeah, I know I'm the oldest as well, and definitely, I jump in and I try to figure it out, and I don't think twice about doing it. I just tell myself I'll figure it out. And sometimes it works out very well. You did something also when you started the Camino. And for those who are listening, you start in this beautiful, very quaint village at the top of the Pyrenees Mountains in France. And then you actually cross the mountains into Spain. And the first trip is typically done from Saint Jean Pied de Port into Roncesvalles, where most people stay at the monastery. But you and I did not do that. We actually took a detour and we went the other route, which stops over in Valcarlos.
Right.
Did you do that because of the weather at the time of year that you went? What time of year did you go?
I went in April. I think I left April 5th,
Mhm.
and it was snowing on the Pyrenees. And
Yeah.
so it was against the law to go over the Pyrenees.
Ooh, okay.
They,
So
they said most of the arrows were on the ground and there was snow on the ground, so you wouldn't
Mhm.
find your way anyway.
Yeah.
And
And I remember, so I went in March. No, May.
oh,
I went in May.
oh,
And we went, it was May, the first time I went with my girlfriend, which is when we crossed the Pyrenees. We went about, I think it was the 19th of May. It was still chilly, but we could not, they advised us at the
yeah,
pilgrim office in Saint Jean not to go over the Pyrenees because they said that it was too treacherous, that the rain had really washed out the roads and we
mm.
needed to go through the alternative route. Although when we got to Roncesvalles, many people had already gone the other route, even though they had said don't do it. What was
Right.
your first impression when you started to meet people? Because that's one of the things that happens on the road. Even though you're alone, you're not alone. You're meeting people from all over the world. So
Yeah.
your first night in Valcarlos, what was that like?
Well, I went in and I well, it was locked. I found the albergue and it was locked, and somebody let me in, and they said you have to go find a bed and then go up to the grocery store and tell the lady you're here.
Okay,
And
that's
so
exactly
that's
what
what
we
I
did.
did. So I put I rolled out my sleeping bag on my bed so everybody would know this one's taken. And I went up to the grocery store and I got some food for the night and the next day. And then I told the lady, and she said, okay, well, I'll be down after I'm done with work and I'll sign everybody in. So
Very nice.
I was so glad because I'm an old lady and
Mm.
I wanted a lower bunk. I
Yeah.
didn't want to be climbing up. I mean, I got to get up and pee all night long.
Kathleen,
So
I'm not. I'm a lady of a certain age myself, and trust me, I'm a little clumsy. So I've always wanted a lower bunk because I was afraid
yeah,
of falling. And the nights that I slept in the top bunk,
yeah.
I did not do very well.
So I was very glad there was a lower bunk left for me.
Yeah,
So
very nice. Now
but it was
you,
so nice. It was so
yeah.
nice. I have to tell you, I met these people there, and like there was a lady from Amsterdam. There was a guy from LA, which is just 100 miles from my house, um and there were people from Canada and Germany and just all these people, and we made a WhatsApp. And so we
Ooh.
could kind of follow each other along. Well, they all walked faster than me, so they got done way before me.
Mhm.
And they were like I was going into Burgos, and they were like, "Oh, spend an extra day, go see this, go see that." And
Mhm.
so that was really nice because they all got to do all that before me, and then they were telling me what to do.
Oh, that's very nice. So you had like this unintentional tour guides that were giving you the scoop as you were getting there.
Yeah, and after they left, and then I was telling them what I was doing, and they
Mhm.
were all very happy to sort of be reliving it with me while
Mhm.
I was going.
Mm.
Because when you're done, you're really sad.
Yeah.
Like it's hard walking, but when you're done, it's very sad that you're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I know that I went through a lot of withdrawals when I finished the Camino, and again I was only I'm still doing it in stages. When my girlfriend Melissa and I went, Melissa's a physician, so she had a limited amount of time. I was the senior executive for an educational company, so I couldn't be gone for too long. We were launching
Right.
our summer programs, but for most people that go now, did you have your albergues or the places where you were staying booked in advance, or did you just walk and say, okay, this is, I think, where I'm going to spend the night?
Well, the lady at the library told
Mhm.
me to book a day ahead. She
Gotcha.
said, book the first 3 days. And of
Mhm,
course, that didn't work because I couldn't go over the Pyrenees. So I,
mhm.
that didn't work. And so anyway, I called ahead. Actually, at Valcarlos, I don't think I called ahead because I didn't know I didn't know
Yeah.
where I was going. But
Mhm.
anyway, so yeah, I just called the day ahead, and it was a good thing to do because when I would get there, I would invariably hear, "Sorry, we're filled up," and I would say, "I have a reservation," and they would look on the list, and my name was there, and they'd say, "Okay, you're in." So so many times I would have been without a place, and actually, one time I was without a place.
Oh, that must have been scary.
Yeah, there was this albergue, they said they opened at Easter, and it was after Easter, so I got there, and there was nobody there, they were closed, and so I had to go to the next town, and they they didn't get their blankets yet, so they couldn't open. I said, "I don't care,
Ah,
I've got a sleeping bag,"
right,
"No, can't,"
right.
and so I actually walked 28 miles that day,
Ooh, that's a
which is
long day.
it was too much for
Walk
me.
from? Where did you walk from? Did you walk where was that
I
you
don't
walked
know,
between?
but I ended up in
Oh,
Estrella.
oh yeah, and so you walked well, if you yeah, that's 28 miles. The Estrella is one of the larger cities, and you can find a lot of
Yeah.
accommodations. But that's
Well,
a long walk. Were you coming from? Were
I
you
don't
coming
remember where I
from Puente
started
La
that
Reina, maybe?
day. I did stay
Yeah,
in that town,
yeah.
so maybe that was it,
Yeah, Puente
but,
La Reina is where I stayed, and, the next town after Puente de la Reina no, the next 2 towns is where we actually stayed with my friend. We ended up, we ended up going all the way from, and did not quite make it to the wine fountain, which is one of the
oh.
big things. Um, did you go to the wine fountain?
Yes, and it was so cool because one of the guys from Valcarlos was standing there, so I took my picture with him in
Oh,
front of
very
the wine,
nice.
and there was a whole big group of German guys who decided to spend the day at the wine fountain.
Oh, very
So
nice.
so they were really having a good time, and,
Yeah.
so I got my wine in my little cup.
Oh, well, for those people who are wondering what we mean by the wine fountain, there is actually a monastery, because it's called Monasterio de Irache, and it's in the in the province of Navarra, and it's in the town of Ayegui, and it's the home of the monastery. And the monks actually started producing wines and had created fountain where every pilgrim can actually go in, and it's open 24 hours a day, 365. And you walk up to the fountain and you can fill your glass or your bottle with some of the wine. And this is a little bit of the exciting first big thing that you're going to hit as you're doing the Camino de Santiago. Now, Kathleen, what I like to do every once in a while when I'm feeling nostalgic toward the Camino, I actually go to the website for the wine fountain, and they have a
Oh.
webcam. So during the hours that the Camino, well, obviously I'm in the East Coast. So right
Right.
now it's evening. It's I guess 7 o'clock there, or maybe later. And no, it's 8 o'clock. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. So it's already too late for people to be walking by the fountain, but it's open, and I love watching the pilgrims come by and kind of sit and stand and take their picture. And that's a very fun place.
It is. I want to say there's two faucets, one for wine and one for water.
That's right. Yeah,
So
that's right. They will give you water. You are correct. I will tell you that when I got to the wine fountain in my pilgrimage, I was actually doing the pilgrimage with my husband then. And it was a wonderful experience, but that was one of the hardest days for me after the wine fountain. I had what we tend to have, one of those moments of really feeling like, why am I doing this? What's wrong with me? I'll never make it. And I really started to self-doubt. Did you have some of those days?
You know, in the beginning of the Camino, it was so mountainous, and I would be walking, and I didn't see anybody else. And I saw people passing me up, but
Yeah.
I was getting depressed because I was so slow,
Mhm.
and everybody passed me up. But then when I got to the mesita, where it's just flat, I could see behind me. There were a lot of people behind me. It's just I couldn't see them because
Yeah.
of the windy roads. So
Mhm.
that made me feel better that there weren't everybody wasn't passing me. There were people behind me that weren't passing me. So
Yeah.
that made me feel better. But when I was walking up hills, and I would be walking, and I would see the end of the road. And I'm like, oh, good, I'm almost there. And so I would get up there, and then
Mhm.
it would turn and wind the other way and go further up. And I was just like, oh my gosh, and then I just thought, you know what, this can't go on forever. I
Mhm.
will get at the top of the mountain
Yeah,
sometime.
that's right.
And that was hard
Yeah.
when I would get up to where I thought, oh, good, I'm almost to the top, and then it would turn.
And it would turn.
And
Oh, I know that feeling. That happened to me in the Pyrenees, in which, we thought as we were going, okay, maybe this is the next turn. And then we were at the top. And then you keep seeing that you're going up and you're going up. When I left the wine fountain, my husband and I walk at very different paces. He is
Oh,
very,
yeah.
he's 6'6", and he
Oh
walks
my gosh.
fast. And first, I am a New Yorker, but I am not a fast walker, especially going uphill. So we were going to spend the night in the town, in one of the towns, and it's actually at the top of this hill, and there's a castle at the top of the hill. And when we were climbing, my husband went ahead, and I kept waiting to see him, and kept waiting and kept looking into the horizon for, and I could see the castle, and I knew that's where the end of the road would be for me, but it looked so hard. It looked like I would never get there. And I really, I didn't think I could do it physically. Did you ever question your physical ability to do this strenuous type of activity?
Did you go to La Faba?
No, I did not get that far.
Okay, so when you're going to La Faba,
Mhm.
um, it is very steep, and it's nice, and it's beautiful. There's trees, and then there's not trees, and
Mhm.
you have to keep walking up and up and up. And
Mm.
I got to the top, and I just sat down, and I couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
And I was just like, actually, I got a urinary tract infection right after that, and
Oh
so I
my
know
God.
I just sweated more than I drank, and I drank a lot, but I sweated
Mhm.
more. And
Wow.
but I just sat down, and I was just like, I can't do it. And and then this guy was walking with me. He walked on ahead, and he came back and got me, and he said, "It's just right around the corner. You
Oh,
need to
wow.
you need to get up and go there, because if you don't hurry up, all the beds will be gone, and you'll have to keep walking further than that."
Oh my
So I
gosh.
I I got up, and I went over there, and I got a bed. So it was like great, but
Mhm.
there was
Did you ever, so now I did this, and this is something that I was incredibly grateful for, but I will tell you, I gave myself a real hard time about it. And basically, there was one day that this is the first time I went in the Camino with my girlfriend Melissa, and we were walking, and I was struggling with plantar fasciitis, and I was really
Oh
having
no.
a lot of pain. And
Oh
I
no.
did not on the first time around my Camino, I did not go up to the what is that called? Oh my God, I'm to after Pamplona to Alto del Perdón. I did not climb
Oh,
Alto del Perdón because I was afraid to do so under so much pain and
right.
I walk slowly. But the second time around, I went ahead and I did make my husband climb that with me, and I did that.
Mm,
But what we did is it's because we did Alto del Perdón. We came down the mountain, and then after that, rather than walking the distance that I had already walked, right? Because I had already done that piece. We took a Uber to the next town where I
oh,
had left off. Did you ever take transportation?
you know what? I always, I thought that I wanted to carry my pack the whole way and I wanted to just walk the whole way. But there was a place where it was going to be 9 miles walking on the freeway.
Wow.
And I just decided I didn't want to do that going into
Mhm,
Burgos. So at Villa Fria,
mhm.
I got a bus to Burgos. So
Okay.
there were 9 kilometers that I didn't
Mhm,
but I decided that it was better to not have a perfect Camino
mhm.
because then I could be snooty and say, "Oh, I walked the perfect Camino,"
Right, right.
but I didn't. So there I am with all the people that had to have assistance. And also, I got sick several times on the
Wow.
like 3 times on the Camino, and when I
Mm,
was sick, I couldn't carry my either I would have had to stay there and wait
mhm.
till I was better to carry
Yeah.
my pack, or I could get my pack transported and just walk without it.
Yeah.
So
How
that's what I
many?
did.
Yeah, that I've done that as well. And I think that, one of the things that I love that you said, right? And I think that there's so many parallels to life. We can choose to give ourselves time, time to heal, but we don't. Or we can also choose to keep going, even though we feel like we can't, and we will make it. But also, we have an idea, and this is the perfectionist in me wanted to have this idea that it had to be done a certain way, that it had to be perfect, that I couldn't, and that I was cheating, quote unquote, by taking a cab when I
Mhm.
couldn't do it. But I think that the one thing the Camino taught me is to be flexible, to be open to the idea that things could change and be okay with the change. And that doesn't necessarily um, have it didn't define me as a person just because I was doing it differently. Because the
Mhm.
Camino is a very personal experience, even though you're surrounded by other people, even though you are full of individuals that come to your aid, it really is something that is important to know. What would be some of the biggest lessons that you learned from the Camino?
Biggest lessons I learned. One lesson that I learned was that I could take care of myself. I could find
Mm,
food. Even though I was the mom, I had 5 kids, and
mhm.
I never was by myself though.
Yeah.
Um, I went right from my mother's house to an apartment with Ron when I got married, and so yeah, I was never by myself, and so I I used all my problem solving skills to create my food, my
Mhm.
lodging and everything. So that was really good. Um
Did
Also,
you wish you had done the Camino with your husband, Ron?
no, it would have been like your husband. My husband was an athlete. He was a triathlete. I
Oh,
mean,
wow. Okay.
I ran the Honolulu Marathon with him one time. He did it in 3 hours. He qualified for Boston, and
Mm,
I did it in 5.5 hours.
mhm,
So
right.
that's why going alone
Mhm,
was good for me. I did ask people to go with me,
mhm,
but it didn't turn out that anybody did go with me.
mhm,
And the other thing about going alone is that there's nobody to complain to, because I'm sure I would have been complaining along the way. And
yeah, I think my husband heard some of that from me.
yeah, other people, who were together, like
Mhm.
I sat down. I mean, you're just like, you go and get your food or make your own food, and then you go sit down at a table. And I sat down by this young man and I said, "Can I sit here with you?" And he said, "Yes." And then his girl came in, and she was all like in tears. And he got up and moved to another table to sit with her.
Wow.
And then he came back later and said, "I'm sorry, but I just had to go sit with her because she was having,
Mhm.
difficulty." And I just thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm here alone, and I
Yeah.
don't have to deal with anybody else's problems." And I
Mhm.
did, other people did have problems. And that was the cool thing, that I got to share some of the healing techniques that I learned while I was, learning online while Ron was sick. And so
Mhm.
that was really lovely that I got to share some of those things with people.
Will you share some of those with us now if someone is listening? Because I know that there might be someone who is probably hearing us talk, but they might be in the midst of walking through being a caretaker for someone they love. What are some of the healing techniques that you shared and that you have used?
Well, one of them is it is worrying. It's not good to worry, because worrying is like making up a sad story and believing in it. And also, the people that we worry about, we're like cursing them. We're thinking bad
Mhm.
thoughts about what they're about to do, instead of like thinking good about what they're about to do, so that we can add to the good graces that they have while they're doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like cursing them
Mhm.
to be thinking bad thoughts about what they're doing. So
That's
that's
very insightful of you. I'd never thought of it that way. And from time to time, I tend to be a little worry wart myself.
Mhm.
So it's not good.
Yeah. And of course, we a lot of people say, "Well, of course I'm worried about you. I love you."
Mhm.
But that doesn't wash, really.
Yeah.
Because we need to think good thoughts about
Mhm.
the endeavors of other people.
Yeah. Now, you completed how long did it take you to complete the Camino?
Well, of course, I was done with my job taking care of my husband. I did
Mhm.
have the rest of my life to walk the Camino.
Okay, but it didn't
But
take you that long.
no, but I gave myself 3 months,
Mhm.
and it
Okay.
actually took me, the first time it took me 66 days. But
Okay.
I took every Saturday, every Sunday off,
Mhm.
because I wanted to go to church. In the
Yeah.
beginning, I was walking, and I'd get in on Sunday, and I would ask somebody, "Where's mass?" And
Mhm.
I missed mass,
And you were
and I
done.
thought,
Yeah.
I was just like, "Here I am on a holy pilgrimage, and I'm not even going to mass
Mm.
on Sunday." So anyway, that's why I decide. And if you want to spend more than one night, you have to get a hotel. You can't. The albergues only want you to stay one night.
Right. And there's a
So
lot of different things too when it comes to the Camino as well. You don't have to stay in an albergue, which is sort of
mhm,
like a hostel for pilgrims only. You have to show your credentials to be able to stay
right.
there. But there's also bed and breakfast or private country homes that you can stay in. And of course, there's hotels and for all types of budgets as well.
Yeah, back
And
in 2019, I did not know about the Camino Ninja.
mhm,
Camino Ninja, if you use that,
yeah,
you can find a place to stay. It's all booking.com,
mhm,
and it's very easy. You can so I didn't have that the first time, so I
mhm.
had my little book,
Yep,
with what is they tell you about all the amenities in each
mhm,
city, and so you can see, okay, there's a hotel here, and I just called them.
mhm. Yeah,
And
I love that. We had a book too. And then one of the things that we learned, I don't know if you did this as well, but we had our book, and every time we passed a town, we would rip those pages
I
off the
know.
book so that the book became less and less heavy.
That's what I did too, and then when I went to write my book, I was like, "Oh, I have to go buy another one because I don't have those pages anymore." So I had my pilgrim passport and it told me where I was each day, but I didn't. Yeah, so I had to go buy another book when I got home.
Yeah, I kept a journal from the Camino de Santiago, and it was something
Mm.
that even though I might have been tired every night, um, my feet hurt or I wanted to take a nap, I made it a point to write my experiences. I have not written a book about the Camino de Santiago, but certainly I did record because I wanted to remember what that was like as we were walking. There were so many things that I was processing, and the lessons that I learned have been invaluable lessons in my life that I keep taking over and over again. Now, you have walked the Camino more than once, Kathleen?
Yeah, I in 2021 I walked in Portugal from
Mm,
Lisbon up through Portugal. So that was really great. And I was going to go to the Camino del Norte this year, but I
mhm.
sold my house and I'm just like in the
Ah,
throes of moving, so I couldn't do it.
well, once you do a pilgrimage, you continue to do it. I know many pilgrims that have completed the Camino and keep going back for many times. I am hopefully this will be the year that I return to the Camino and I complete it, but I don't know. It's I've been planning, and now the dates that I had planned, I actually have an event that I'm hosting that I committed
Oh,
to, and they set the date for it, and it's the dates that I was thinking of being in Spain. So, maybe,
yeah.
it's not time yet. Now, for anyone that is thinking of doing this or is curious, what would you recommend to them?
You mean what time of year or what do you mean? Yeah,
I
so
would say overall, if they are intrigued by the idea of
mm,
the Camino and they want to learn more or they want to know if it's
yeah.
for them, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say read some books and start walking because it's really, I mean, when you're on the Camino, you walk. I mean, it's
Mhm,
real low skill, 1 foot in front of the other, but
mhm,
uh, you're gonna be much happier if you've been walking for a while. And
mm,
my sister-in-law, I had been walking for a while. Actually, I was walking with my friend Severa at Mission Bay,
uh-huh,
5 miles, 3 days a week, and that didn't even make me sweat. And
mm,
and so I just thought, well, I can walk 5 miles before lunch and 5 miles after lunch, and I can do this. I knew I could do it.
mhm,
And then my sister-in-law said, "Well, Kathleen, you're gonna have to walk up mountains." So she took me on hikes up all the mountains in San
mhm.
Diego.
Very
Um,
nice.
yeah, so that was good. Um,
Mhm.
I I read books. Get the Camino Ninja app for sure.
Okay. Camino
Um,
Ninja. I don't think I have that. I have a Camino app, and actually I've never deleted it from my phone. But every once in a while I go back and I look and I start planning my little Camino, but I'm gonna have to download the Camino app.
Camino
Um
Ninja,
Camino
Ninja.
Ninja. Okay, well I have the Buen
Yeah,
Camino app, so I'm gonna have to
yeah,
download
that's
the other one.
yeah. I had to download. Camino Ninja doesn't have the Camino del Norte on it, but it's got
Okay.
the other ones, and it's so cool because they have the altitude. And so
Mm,
you go in there and you write down where you're at and where you want to go
okay.
to, and then you see the altitude if you can walk that far. I mean, if there's no mountains, you can walk further. And so
Mhm.
you can just judge how far you can walk if there's mountains or not.
Mhm.
And then you see, okay, I'm going to go to this place. And
Yeah.
then they actually show you everything and all the amenities and all the towns between them.
Mhm.
And then you can like click on the one you want to stay with, and booking.com takes care of
Mhm.
it for you, or maybe not. Some of them don't.
Yeah.
And so that was really key. The one thing I must say, in the afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
I would get a what do you call it? It's beer with lemon
Oh yeah,
soda.
yeah, so good. That's delicious. I
I know,
used
but you know what? I found out that I was really stupid after that. And I mean, I lost things because I
Oh
wasn't
my
paying
goodness.
attention. Like
Oh
I lost one of
Lord.
my socks. And I
Oh
remember
no.
looking at at night in the morning, if your socks aren't wet, you just pin them to the back of your backpack and
Uh-huh.
let them dry. And I remember I was sitting there drinking my beer with
Mhm.
limon,
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
and I saw that it wasn't pinned properly and I didn't fix it. And
Mhm.
when I got to where I was going, I was missing one of my socks.
Oh my
And that
God.
I know.
And by the way, for people who are listening, they may not think that this is a serious thing, but when you're only carrying one or two pairs of socks, that is a serious thing. And yes, you can buy another pair on the Camino, but we do a lot of research. At least I did on the type of sock, and you try different socks before you go because you don't want to get blisters. So,
Right.
what did you end up doing?
Yeah, I was just down to two pairs of socks after that with one extra.
Oh my
and
gosh.
so every night I had to wash my socks.
Yeah.
Um and um and also I lost my book doing that too. I lost my book after
Okay.
I had my cerveza con limon. And
Yes.
and so I'm thinking I stopped drinking cerveza and limon in the afternoon.
Well, I would
And
drink them, but definitely we had done laundry and we were not walking anymore. So and you know,
oh,
I kept
okay.
track of everything. But yes, so it's very fun to be able to get into a town and then you see the people that you know and they wave at you and you check into your albergue, you do your little laundry, you get settled, and then you go and can walk for the afternoon around the town, get to know the city, see the sights, and maybe stop at a bar or a restaurant for a snack or even dinner. The pilgrim dinner is most restaurants will serve you that as well, which is
Mhm.
amazing. So, what was your favorite night, you would say, on the Camino, or one of the most memorable nights that you had?
I don't know if I'll be able to tell you. There, I I should pick one that I remember what the town was. But there was one, and my birthday was well, it was on the Camino, but I was ill, and
Mm,
so I couldn't make it to this place. I asked the guy, on the WhatsApp. I asked him where should I stay on my birthday, and
uh-huh.
they recommended this place. I don't know, and so I didn't make it for my birthday, but I mean, they have a dance party after dinner. They serve dinner
Oh,
and they have a dance
I
party,
think I've
and
heard of this place. There in one of the
yeah,
books that I read that after dinner they have a big dance party celebration in
yeah,
Bonn. Ooh, now when is your birthday, Kathleen?
May 23rd, and
Okay, it's
I'm like
coming
looking
up.
at my book to see if anyway, I don't know if I can find it, but anyway, it was very fun, and I met this
Fun.
guy. I mean, you meet people, and a lot of people go on the Camino because they
Mhm.
have a broken heart or they
Yeah.
just can't live their life anymore. For some reason, somebody says, I think you should do the Camino. And
Mm,
there
yeah.
was a guy sitting with me. He was from Russia,
Mm.
and his wife had left him
Oh.
and taken their daughter to England and was living in England with her daughter and wouldn't let him contact
Mm.
her.
Oh,
Now she
that's
was
terrible.
I know she's 18 now,
Mhm.
and he was just like, everything I do, I send them money, everything I do is for them. And
Mhm.
I told him, well, maybe you and her can meet on the Camino sometime.
Mhm.
And yeah, you started crying. I was just like,
Oh,
oh man, what did I do? And
well, I think that that's excellent advice. I think the Camino really is a healing experience. There's so many different people that you will never forget having the experiences, and
right.
there's so much beauty, and you see humanity at its best. I've always had such incredible experience.
Ooh,
I've never not felt safe in the Camino, which is important.
right.
And again, I'm so in awe of you. I wish you were going this next
I know.
this year. Now, I will tell you, listen to how these things work so interestingly enough. This morning, I had a conversation with someone who lives in LA. And it was early for her. It was a 10 a.m. meeting for me, but 7 a.m. for her. And she logged in and we're talking about her being a part of the podcast. And she says, well, I'm going to set the appointment to record, but I'm going on a trip. I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. And I said, oh, where are you going? She's like, I'm going to Spain. And it turns out that she's
Oh,
doing the Camino de Santiago. And I
oh
said, oh my
wow.
goodness, I'm speaking to someone today, interviewing them about the Camino and about her book. And, we had a nice time chatting and we talked a lot. I gave her some recommendations. And then later on, the next person I spoke to is someone who lives in Boston. And she was inviting me to go to an event that she's hosting. And what did she say? She's like, and without knowing, right, that I've been in the Camino, she said, well, hopefully we can get together more during the summer. Although I really am starting to look to see if I go to the Camino de Santiago over the summer. And I'm thinking, what? Are you kidding me? So I've run across so many different people that
Yeah.
are interested in going and have this dream. And I want to encourage anyone who is listening to look into it. If you haven't watched the movie The Way with Martin Sheen, I encourage you to do that. I also want to encourage you. Um, Take a chance and read Kathleen's book. Kathleen's book is beautifully written. It's got some great insights and some personal anecdotes and stories. She pours her heart into this book and is really shares, her descriptions are incredibly vivid of what she saw, what she experienced. You will feel like you are with her along for this ride. So I got it on Amazon, but I know that how else can they get your book, Kathleen?
Well, that's it. Amazon. That's it. And
Okay.
and and please write me a review after you read it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's
And
it's fantastic.
I want to tell you, right across from the table of contents, there is a thing that says read this first.
Mhm.
And so you have to double opt in, but I made a website with my pictures because
Ooh,
everybody said, oh, put your pictures in your book. And I said, well, then it'll be $50 and
yeah.
nobody will buy it.
Yep.
So I made a website for my readers, and
Mhm.
you get the password and you can go see.
Okay. Well,
So
I am
I put
excited.
them per the chapters. So when you're reading chapter 1, you can look at the chapter 1 pictures.
Ooh, very fun. Well, I did not see, you know what? I'm not very good at following directions. I see it. It says read this first. So I'm going to have to go and look at them. I love seeing pictures. If you're
Mm.
interested in connecting with Kathleen, can they connect with you on social media?
Yeah, well, I'm on Facebook, Kathleen Donnelly Israel on
Mhm.
Facebook,
Great.
and also I'm Kathleen at wisdomonthecamino.com. That's my email.
Mhm. Very
And
nice.
and so
I love
I
it.
I'm on Instagram and those other ones, but I just am an old lady and I just forget to go in there, and I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to get good at that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Well, I'm following you. We're going to have all the information for the listeners so that they can check it out and they can connect with you. I know that we connected I'm typically on Facebook, but right now I was hacked on Facebook. So I'm not on
Oh
Facebook
no.
right now. So sadly for me, I'm going to have to connect with you on Instagram only until I get my account back. But I don't know if I'll be able to get my account back. It's been
Oh.
silly and crazy, you know? So anyway.
Yeah, I've been hacked. I think everybody's been hacked.
Yeah, it's been over 2 weeks now since I was hacked. So I'm not happy over this whole thing. It's been terrible. But it's such a joy to be able to speak to you. It's such a joy to be able to hear your experiences and to learn more about your experiences in this wonderful journey. Thank you for sharing them with us. I so appreciate you, Kathleen.
Thank you too, Julie. I'm happy we got to talk.
Absolutely. Well, my friends, don't forget, give her some social currency. More importantly, go get the book, write her a review. I'm going to be writing one, and I am going to go check out her pictures. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure that you go confidently in the direction of your dreams, wherever that may take you. Don't be afraid. You can do anything that you imagine as long as you take that first step. So thanks, everyone. Until next time, I'm your host, and Kathleen. We will talk to you soon, and we loved having you. Go confidently as well.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks for listening to Casa de Confidence. We thank you for listening, and if you want more, go to casadeconfidencepod.com. Check Julie out on her socials as Julie DeLucca-Collins. And you can also check out her website at goconfidentlycoaching.com. Have a great week, and don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.
Hi, everybody. I know that sometimes we get very lonely in this entrepreneur journey, and I want to invite you to join us into our limited time only Purposeful You Mastermind. For many of us entrepreneurs, we believe that we can do it all, but the reality is that doing it alone only creates a lot of overwhelm. So join us at the Purposeful You Mastermind. You can find out more information by going to bit.ly/Julie's Mastermind. This is going to be the place where you are able to then unlock your full potential and achieve long-term success for your business. Push you behind your current limits, expand your connections, discover new ideas, and implement them with confidence. You're going to get the support in all aspects and transforming you to the six-figure business you've been looking for. Pause and get off the hamster wheel if you've been spinning around. This is a time where you can get that support from like-minded entrepreneurs that are here to join you in your journey. Together, we can challenge the assumptions and land the speaking engagements and opportunities we want to grow our business and make an impact in the lives of people. See you then. Remember, you can find the mastermind at bit.ly Julie's Mastermind.